Well, good morning, friends. Got a few things to clean up on this shot, and then some paint and a little bit of liquify. So, let's see. Yeah, that's his head, and that's on top. Okay. And the hand is there, so let's go here. Let's just do it with the brush. Keep it simple. Just a little bit of touch up. Well, we'll see who shows up today. The shot I was working on yesterday, I did get completed. Here it is, and in fact, I think it came out pretty well. What's going on here? So yeah, I'm liking the feeling of it. I think I did the color and shadows after I signed off yesterday, so last night. I think. I don't remember exactly where I left off, but anyway. So here we just have a interesting. Is this actually, it is. It's actually in this layer, so well, that's okay. I'll just, for those who are interested, what's going on here is, well, actually, I think I'll wait until maybe the live stream gets slightly busier, and then I'll kind of explain what's going on with this shot. Till then, I think actually what I'm going to do here is do a selection like that, so that I can then delete it out of both layers like that. Yeah. And here I'm hitting shift to expand the selection just a little bit. Then kill it out of that layer, kill it out of that layer. So just cleans everything up. Okay, so now I can go ahead and in this layer just do a little painting cleanup. Just round that off a little bit. So, oh hey Maria, working from home today, so you can be in another stream. Oh, okay, good. You know, one thing that occurred to me, I was thinking about your situation yesterday, is that, you know, it is possible that you'll get, if you order the USB female to mini USB adapter, the one that ostensibly fits your phone, it may turn out that with the version, if your phone's 6 years old, it could be the version of Android you're using, that it won't work at all. That is definitely a possibility. And there's no way to know without trying it. But I would say in your case, obviously you're doing this animation stuff, so I assume you're either on some sort of desktop computer or laptop. So the fact of the matter is, you get this gear, whatever recording you do, you really would be probably better off to just do it in the computer anyway than to try to do it on your phone. So that's just what I'm thinking. But any version of Windows after version 8, which is what I'm using here, I don't know about version 7, you could plug that device in and it just magically shows up as an audio device. So okay, if you got an all-in-one, yeah, you're going to want to do your audio recording on the PC anyway. So it's all good. Actually, I don't know if I want to do what I'm doing right here. Okay, so what we have in the show is Wake Up Vegas. Okay, so Golik finds the letter. Here comes Carliana and Vespucci, getting impatient. What's going on here? And then what happens here is what occurs in the next shot. Well, actually, this is interesting because what was in the storyboard was this shot. It's Golik waving his fist with the letter in his hand saying, treachery. And what occurred to me as I sort of scanned through these shots was that I could possibly reuse this shot, since if you really look closely at his positioning here, look at that, right? Now it is true that his head is facing Vespucci at that moment. I don't think that much matters. So then I said, well, okay, let's take that shot, clean out the background. And then what I did was I just used a little bit of liquefy here on his shoulders so that it almost looks like a shoulder shrug right here. And the way I was able to do that more or less cleanly was by coming to this frame and just cutting his, I guess, his collar and head into a different layer. By putting it in a different layer, I didn't have to have Krita remember the selection between the head and the collar and the rest of his body. I didn't want Krita to have to remember that selection. So it was made the most sense to just put it in a separate layer. And then I used liquefy to not only rotate his head a little bit, as you can see there, but also to use liquefy on these edges so that once it was distorted, to move the pixels back to where they covered up the seam that was created from cutting it. It worked pretty well. When you added to this the letter, you get this real nonchalant, see for yourself, treachery. Okay, so this is inked, just a nice dramatic flip around, and then what I'll do is I'll get this inked and then use liquefy here right around the bridge of his nose with a range of about this much, I think. Let's just actually try this and see. Boop. Let me see what that would want to be. Probably something like that. Yeah, so you can see, you can kind of get him scrunching down and kind of thing. So that's basically what that's all about. So I'll just reapply liquefy after it is inked. So anyway, I've got some actually classic Disney soundtrack stuff playing in my headphones, so hopefully it won't bleed through, because if it does, then I'm gonna get zapped for a copyright strike. Okay. Obviously this is going to require a completely different background, and this really should be the tent. So if we go back here in the show, yeah, I mean ostensibly the tent is, frankly, it's just a close-up of this, so why don't we just use this tent. And let's do it this way. Let's not copy the layers. Let's just do a copy like if we were copying it over into Tahoma or something. And plug it right into the background layer. But now we have to obviously, okay, and by the way, we don't want the soldier to look like a giant, so let's see what the relative scale of the characters is. That looks probably not too far off. So I'm just using the soldier to gauge how big the tent should be in the background. If we look at the, if we're doing a smash zoom from the prior cut, I think we want to exaggerate it a little bit so that we can effectively chop the soldier out of the shot. I don't think we really want him in here. So I'm actually thinking I'm gonna, for that reason, I'm actually gonna stretch this wide. Something like that should work. Okay, so let's save our work. Save early, save often. Okay. So that was a boo-boo right there, wasn't it? Actually, you know what? I'm kind of glad that happened because I can move this background to here. And then who knows, I might wind up needing the sky. I'm not sure. So that feels pretty good. Obviously, we're going to have to give him some pupils. And probably, well, some eye blinks and then lip sync as well. See for yourself. Let's get the lip sync done right now. So we'll create a layer and call it mouth. M-O-U-T-H. As usual. Okay, obviously we have a mouth that is baked into the shot. So he says, see for yourself. Yeah, so we'll just start it here. And normally I'm going to use a color something like that. And then that needs to be in raw mode. Okay, stop everything. Is there a selection? I'm going to hit Control-Shift-A to make sure there's no selection. Are we in erase mode? No. Solo the layer, everything's there. Ah, it needs to be on top of the head layer. That was silly. C, and this can be turned off. Okay, so it looks like we've got a little animation here. So we're going to have to keyframe that. C, and then this actually could probably be deleted, and then in the Golic layer, we might as well just freehand path tool, normal mode, solo Golic, and I did the same thing again. My bad. I might want to consider putting it on the actual head layer. Your silly goose. Okay, well, this would be solved completely by just taking one moment to name the layers so that at a glance I can it's like, okay, Dave, how do you actually manage to be that strikingly stupid? All right, G key, and this needs to be on the mouth layer. C for, and we'll just see how this goes, by the way. And then I think what I'm going to do here is just actually duplicate these. See for yourself. Let's take these two, hello, and move them. Okay, and the dragging and dropping doesn't want to work. Thank you, Krita. I actually played around with Krita 4 yesterday. Just, I will say the interaction in the timeline is definitely vastly more predictable in Krita 4 than Krita 5. There's other things though that, you know, it's like everything's a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off. It just is what it is. So, okay, so that shouldn't be necessary. Okay, I'm just going to delete that. Hit the B key. Hit the 5 key. Put the hand in there. The mouth could be probably not 50% transparent. Hey, Tom. As is usually the case. Okay, and we need to insert a keyframe there, obviously. See for yourself. Treachery. Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess we'll just create a layer and call it eyes. And I'm going to stop this music because it's not exactly floating my boat anyway, which means I can ditch the headphones for now. Okay, what do we want to do here? I think I say he's looking down, looking ghoulish. Let me hit play. Yeah, I would actually have to say what we just saw right there, you guys probably didn't notice it, but what we just saw right there is probably the single most egregious thing to me about Krita 5. Just it's bad enough that you can't get it to reliably rewind, but you can kind of learn to work around it. But the very idea that a program that purports to be about animation routinely and normally loses track. Like just a moment ago when I was on this frame, I was seeing this. Just the whole idea that they just can't keep the image sequence updated is just it's shocking. Actually, it's like beyond the pale. It's almost creepy to me, like, because you really have to try to suck that bad, you know. It's I find it creepy. Like, how the hell do you miss that? I don't get it, but there it is. There it is, my friends. It is the world we live in. Okay. I think I'm a little bit jaundiced in my attitude right now from dealing with the vet pharmacy on the phone yesterday. It was just the quintessential modern American customer service. ASAP. ASAP, baby. As sucky as possible. It was a situation where the vet knew the situation. We knew the situation. The order was placed. And then after everything was done, then we get an email saying they can't fill the prescription because of a bit of information that the only way this could happen is if their own system is so inept that after everything is done and ordered and paid for and everything, their customer service people literally don't know even close to in real time what just happened, which is it's just baffling. It's baffling. I don't have that problem with my business. You know, if a customer does something, it immediately goes in the database and that's immediately accessible to everybody. But there's something about these really large corporations and the customer service methodologies that are being employed today that is truly baffling to me. I think the driver is let's not have to actually be paying a human being to do something. Like, as much as possible, we don't ever want to have a human do anything. So the irony of it is when you're trapped in like the worst customer service situation possible, you're sitting there on the phone for 20 minutes and you're hearing a voice tell you how wonderful it is if you just go to their website, all the wonderful benefits you'll enjoy. It's like fucking creepy. I think that might be, as a filmmaker or a storyteller, that might be what I'm responding to there, is that you think about a show or a movie where you've got somebody that's really, really creepy, like a rapist or something, that's speaking really sweetly to his victim. Think about how that feels, just how creepy and like gross that is. It's kind of that feeling. Of course, it's somewhat muted from that extreme, but it's the same kind of feeling where you're being spoken really sweetly to by a computer from a company that you know intellectually and experientially, you know that to them you are not just a number. You are less than a number. You are nothing. You know what I mean? If you want to take your ball and go home, in some cases, especially in the healthcare world, if you're unfortunate enough to be a ward of the healthcare system, um, you don't have any alternative. You know, and this being expressed so sweetly to us in a country that claims we've got the best healthcare system in the world, which is so comically, I mean, it's just baffling. You know, the misinformation is so extreme that you just go, do we actually want to be this stupid? Are we actually this stupid? Because what we're told and what we often tell ourselves to believe is so different from what we're experiencing, like right now in real time. You know what I mean? Like this sucks, but you're telling yourself it's great. It's just it's endemic. There's something about our psychology today. I don't know if it's got something to do with being, married to devices all the time. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a little creepy. Okay, I tell you what I'm gonna do is actually what I really want to do here. No, I guess I've been finding myself increasingly cynical lately. So, tough luck, world. I'm a little cynical. Okay, so he's gonna say see for yourself. So let me just zoom out a little bit so I can make sure that the direction of his eyes looks okay. So what I want him to do is blink and then time for the metaverse. I know, it's like, it's actually, what's funny about that is if you were a conspiracy theorist, which I am really not. I believe the world is driven not by conspiracies generally, but by, oftentimes there are wrong-headed incentives where we have outcomes that are pretty predictable from a distance, frankly. But when they happen, you look back and it looks conspiratorial, when in point of fact it wasn't conspiratorial. It's like the banking crisis. I mean, the banking crisis happened because the banks were totally incentivized in many, many ways to make bad loans. I mean, they just were. And you could see it coming miles away. But this is the world we live in. Even though you can see it coming miles away, even then you're highly incentivized to, if you're the one who's benefiting from the wrong-headed incentives, then of course you're totally incentivized to postpone. It's like climate change or something, We are highly incentivized to postpone dealing with obviously egregious situations absolutely as long as possible. We just are. All right, let me see if I need another blink here. So my point about the metaverse is, if you were conspiratorial, you would almost say it's like when you deal with a pharmacy or an insurance company's customer service, you're trapped in a world that's much worse than the metaverse. Okay, because you can't believe this is actually real. Like, how do they possibly suck this bad? And I say it that way because I've experienced it so many times that you just wag your head in disbelief. In fact, I ranted a bit to the veterinary customer service girl that I got on the phone because I told her everything that I'm experiencing right now. I totally predicted. I knew this was going to happen. I knew we were going to get the order, take various steps, and then I would hear from them, and the basic Reader's Digest explanation of what went wrong is that the people that are taking care of the customer service literally have no clue what actually is taking place for the customer. It's just, you just can't believe it. It's like, it's so mind-bogglingly scary to think that how can anyone suck this bad? You just don't understand it. But there it is. So when you're in that kind of an environment, do you think maybe, this is what I mean by conspiratorial, it's almost like we are being incentivized to flock to the metaverse. It's like, oh my God, this fake world would be so much nicer than the real one, which of course is ludicrous on many levels, but it's crazy stuff, baby. Crazy. All right, I'm going to insert a key, and now I'm going to let Golik be sort of nonchalantly looking over towards Vespigi. No, I think about these things mainly from the vantage point that I don't want to be that guy. I will not treat my customers that way. It's one of the reasons why I'm leery of growth. Nothing wrong with growth. Nothing wrong with wanting to have a big company or whatever. But I don't know. I guess I'll stop there because that's a whole nother discussion. I have a little unusual philosophy. Now it is interesting that my mother told me that my biological father and I have this in common, because in the family that I'm genetically born from was actually a pretty prominent family in South Carolina. Century ago or whatever. There's a town named after them. There's a city, I think there's a city in South Carolina called Bethea, which is, that's my actual real last name is Bethea. And, but apparently my biological grandfather was a pretty successful businessman. I can't remember what he did, but my mother told me that he, what made him unique as a businessman was there was a point in the business where he had a very clear sense of enough. This is enough. I don't need to grow anymore, have anymore, get anymore. I've got enough. And he and I have that in common. There was a definite point in my life where I said, when I grow, if I grow from here, and I've toyed with it and made mistakes. I've had employees, I've had people working for me on various levels, and what happens is there's a certain breaking point at which, especially if you're like me, where you've worked for yourself. When you work for yourself, especially if you're comfortable with sales, what you discover is that you don't actually have to work that hard in order to make enough money to actually do okay, right? To be just fine in life, you can pay your bills and it's not a big deal. So then you have this decision point where it's, well, do I want to go beyond that? And for me, I had friends running their businesses in tandem who did that. They grew, and I saw my one friend set up a dealer network and then have a wholesale mutiny where the whole, the darkest days of his life, the entire dealer network basically turned on him. And, just seeing what he went through, I mean, oh my gosh, it was difficult. Really brutal period of time. And I'm going, and for what? For what? Money? I don't get it. Once you can pay your bills, how much more do you need? Okay, there's kind of the retirement idea, or, the idea of sort of being able to make some provision for when you're infirm, basically. So I can understand that. But,
Diderot said that a catastrophic accident in Paris and some witness. Everything conspired to make this inevitable.
Yeah. So yeah, and in that sense, that's an accurate. Um, Let me double check it. Yeah, okay. So the color's baked in anyway. So no, that's an accurate usage of the term conspiracy, actually, in the sense that um, it is true that it is a conspiracy, but it's not an intelligent conspiracy. It's a conspiratorial conflagration of circumstances that all work together to come to an inevitable result, right? The point is that there's not a coordinated. It's just like the election. You know, there wasn't a conspiracy on the left to steal the election. I'm sure there were some people on the left who would want to have stolen the election. I'm sure. Why not? Of course you'd want to. That doesn't mean you did it. And it is enormously difficult to coordinate a large scale conspiracy. That's a very, very actually, you know what? I am going to put this ink. Let me check something here. Yes, I'm going to put this ink in a different layer because, or I'm sorry, this color, because I have a feeling I'm going to want to change the outline colors from black. And I might as well just leave myself the option. So we'll just call this color and insert, 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 insert. And then we'll liquefy them together. So then the interesting thing about that to me, and obviously this is a little bit going to be a little controversial because I'm going to make a political statement, but you know, I think that what took place is, on the one hand, you've got it's pretty clearly true at this point in history that like literally everything that Donald Trump was accusing the left of doing or having done was in fact precisely what he was actually doing himself. Now that's kind of interesting. It's not surprising though. You know, it's the same thing Russia's doing. I mean, sorry to compare Don with, you know, Putin, but the truth of the matter is, you know, here the Russians are claiming that the Ukrainians early in the war are using people as human shields, and yet now we're finding these mass graves where they just slaughtered civilians. It's like, you know, the very sorts of things, specific things and sorts of things that they claim the other guys are doing is in fact exactly what they themselves are doing. And it's just amazing how often that turns out to be the case, I think. Obviously, you guys are free to disagree because it's all just opinion. But the thing about conspiracy, it boils down to this, and I do have a point. The point about conspiracy is that, yes, with the 2020 election, there was a conspiracy. But it turns out the only conspiracy was the only kinds of conspiracies we usually have, which are fairly small ones. The only conspiracy was actually Donald Trump's conspiracy, with a fairly small group of people probably that were actually in the know. Everything else was just momentum. You know, you have all these QAnon things going on, and you know, you're rallying up the, you know, the generally well-meaning people who maybe have gotten sucked into something that's a little bigger than they realize. But, you know, it turns out the only conspiracy was Trump's conspiracy. Okay, you know. That's what you're going to do. Do you see the bias of mainstream media heavily slanted towards Democrats? Let me look at your comments here. I bet it's a balance too. How much time is spent when you like to do versus memory management? Oh, you're talking about the business stuff, right? Being a manager versus doer. Well, okay. Let me take those one at a time. My answer to the bias question is, of course, if you look at MSNBC, it's heavily biased towards the left. If you look at Fox, it's obviously heavily biased towards the right. CNN's a little bit to the right, I would say, of MSNBC. If you want objectivity, you're probably going to look at, I think Wion, W-I-O-N, which is from India, here on YouTube, is very, very good, very objective. They basically pick on everybody. And if you really want to go far left, then you might look at something like Democracy Now!, which is obviously really, really tilted to the left. But we're way past the age where we should poo-poo the bias of the media, because the reality is that anybody who complains about media bias, in my opinion, is completely stupid or really uninformed, for the simple reason that any idiot can spend 5 minutes on YouTube and find a half a dozen channels that cover the entire spectrum of bias, right? So you can get it all. But it's definitely not all tilted one way or the other. It is true that, of course, back in the days when we had 3 television networks, generally the news was biased more to the left than the right. And there was a season of time where I think actually Fox News balanced that out, and that was their slogan, fair and balanced, And I think there was a period of time where I think that served a pretty useful purpose. But getting back to incentives, okay? If you're going to be fair and balanced, but then over time, over a decade, what you discover is that it's really the radicals that are paying your bills. It's really the radicals that are getting you to get eyeballs on your content that don't go away. What do you think's going to happen? Really? I mean, how stupid are we? Is that the only thing that's going to keep that outlet from continuing to move towards that incentivized bias is going to be a really, really, really strong moral compass. But the moral compass is not moral or ethical. The compass is not ethical generally in capitalist America. Look, I'm a capitalist, okay, but let's be honest. The incentive is fiscal. Follow the money. If you want to understand to the degree things do become conspiratorial, if you want to understand them, 9 times out of 10, just follow the money. That almost always tells you everything you need to know about what's really going on. There's a little bit of a difference in the political space in that beyond just money, there's something about power that's a really strong incentive for certain types of people. Think about the irony of that, though. What that tells you is that while sometimes there are people who get into politics because they want to change the world in a good way, let's say, that is true. But I think, axiomatically, that we can probably say with pretty good confidence that most of the people that are attracted to politics are attracted to power. Which means that by definition, your politicians, this is actually why the sort of balance of powers we have in America is a good thing. Because if we're not going to be stupid, then it's like, I'm not trying to pick on anybody as far as politicians go. I'm sure there's plenty of good ones out there, right? But in terms of my general point of view, my perspective is that I am going to assume that you are basically ethically pretty awful. You're pretty bad if you're a politician. For the simple reason that that's what attracted you to it in the first place, is you're turned on by power. You're turned on by having control. You may have started, in some cases, of course, some people start from a better place, and then they sort of get a little bit jaded by the system, and they kind of find out how it really works, and then they gravitate towards, just kind of being like everybody else. It's totally understandable. I mean, you can't really criticize them for it. I suspect if I was involved in politics, I suspect that the siren song of power and control and influence would, I'm sure I'd be vulnerable, to that. I don't know that I would, but I probably would. I mean, I'm just a normal guy, right? So why is that interesting? What's interesting about it is that what it means is that the people we look to as our saviors in a sense, but certainly as think about how politicians are positioned in a political race. You know, a lot of times they're positioned as being patriots, or they're, you know, they want to tout their Americanism, or their, you know, they're kissing babies, and it's all about setting themselves up as an ethical example, as if that's the reason to elect them. The irony of it is that 99% of the time, that is always nothing more or less than just a story. It's just a story. And we are so willing to settle for a story without looking deeper that generation after generation, we don't really seem to get much smarter, you know, in how we evaluate these things. Now, that could be sort of, some segments of the population may be more susceptible to stupidity, frankly, than others. I'm not sure, you know.
And here's Amar, and I figured he would have some. The politics system is used as a tool for division. Tax welfare. In order to get where you can make a difference, you end up losing integrity in order to get there.
Well, it's a really, really difficult minefield to navigate because I would say this. You can compromise in the sense of negotiating without necessarily compromising your ethics. And if you do compromise from a negotiation standpoint, in order to have some give and take, then of course, the model of ethics and patriotism that's running against you in your own party is, of course, going to try to use your compromises against you in order to paint you as not a faithful arbiter of the ethics of the party. And that's why you should vote for the person that's trying to take your seat from you. Now, think of the irony of that. The only reason you were able to serve your constituents well was because you had to find a way to compromise. And so yet at the electoral stage, we're still saying to the population, you're so amazingly stupid that, and I love it. I love the fact that you're so stupid, you'll vote for me if I can just convince you that I eat enough apple pie. It's like, it's mind-boggling. But the story is, this guy over here that's been serving you is no longer worthy to hold office, specifically for the very reason that he did the only thing he could possibly have done to serve you well, which is to compromise, because that's how our system works. Right? So the whole thing's just dripping with irony. Is it not? It's just dripping. Dripping, dripping, dripping with irony. So, you know, socio-politically, what that means to me is that I don't have any interest in getting involved with politics. It's interesting, actually. I went to my my neighborhood association's annual meeting a couple nights ago, and I've never gone to the meetings before. I just don't bother with it, you know. And it was interesting to observe myself to say, okay, how do I feel about what I'm experiencing here? You know, here I'm kind of rubbing shoulders with my neighbors a little more, you know, and kind of seeing what's going on in terms of the decisions that have to be made going forward for the next year and all that. And I'm just asking myself, okay, so how do I feel about that involvement? And I came away going, yeah, I'm just really not interested, thanks. I'll pay my property taxes, I'll pay my dues, and I just really don't think getting involved is for me. What I will do is maybe I'll tell stories through my little cartoons, and if I have something to say socioculturally, I'll say it through a story. Now I can say it to you guys here, you know, I can sort of comment about some of these ideas and issues just because it's fun to do so, but this color should be a little brighter here, actually, because theoretically, the sun is actually shining on him in that direction, so got to be a little careful on our colors. I guess we can go ahead and stick with the blue. Maybe we'll lighten it up just a smidgen. Just a smidgen. And then this is actually supposed to be the yellow. You know, at the end of the day, what I enjoy is I enjoy the discussion, actually. So I enjoy negotiation. It's hard to find in normal everyday life. It is actually quite enormously difficult to find people. Shoot, I'm hitting the wrong keys here. That are capable of engaging in what I would call a good faith negotiation or debate. People just get bent out of shape, you know. They lose their cool. There was the one person at the meeting 2 nights ago. And I'm kind of bleeping over all your comments. I mean, you guys, I'm scanning it, and I take all your comments to heart, and they're all good comments. You know, I can't disagree usually with much that you say, Amar. You know, we tend to respond when the evils that are going on in the world affect us directly. Then all of a sudden we start waking up, and oftentimes then it's too late. It is what it is. But anyway, at the meeting, there was the quintessential character that you guys know, a particular woman who clearly didn't really understand some things about how some things sort of politically work, but yet she had some opinions, and her opinions were alluding to the idea that in one aspect of the financials of the neighborhood association, that this one thing was maybe corrupt. Okay, so she was having a hard time expressing it. She didn't really have the language to even, but the basic message was, you know, I'm a little suspicious here. I don't know quite why I'm suspicious, but something looks a little wrong here. You know, and the head of the association, of course, is she's having a hard time not laughing because or getting impatient, you know, with this one person. And what I was thinking to myself is, you know, and so actually the head of the association, who's a really sweet person, she started kind of jumping in to finish the girl's sentences for her. So it's like kind of wrap up your complaint, either get to the point or, you know, let's be done with it kind of thing. And, you know, and I was thinking to myself, just be patient, you know, let her finish, I mean, this is important to her. She doesn't really know exactly what it is she's complaining about or if she even has a complaint, but whatever it is, it's important to her. So I'm like, just let her get it out of her system, validate her as a person. You know, what's it cost you to do that? Nothing. It costs you nothing to just validate a person and say, you know, I get your concern, and if there's a pathway to investigate that or deal with it in some way, then you know, let's do that. And of course, there are pathways that you can pursue if you feel something's, you know, rotten in Denmark, so to say. But, I kind of question everything one claims is truth, research thoroughly. Well, here's the problem, Amar. And this is where getting into, you know, religion becomes really difficult. The problem is that there are many things in the human experience about which it doesn't matter how much research you do. It doesn't, it's like, is Christianity true? Is it true? Well, first of all, that's a stupidly simplistic question. You know, a question like, is the Bible reliable as a document of history? Socio-cultural, political history? Is it an accurate document? Is it an accurate record? Now that's a specific question that you can maybe investigate. When people make a decision about what they believe or what they trust or what they, you know, you get what I'm trying to say, it is almost never a researched decision, and even people who do the research generally at some point The truth of the matter is, most people who are doing research are actually not even doing research. They're actually just looking for confirmation bias. That's why we should put a lot more value on science, not in the sense that science is necessarily always right versus some wacky esoteric ideas that somebody might have that might turn out to be right too, you know? We don't know. But at least in well done peer reviewed science, at least we have data that we can compare clinically to evaluate whether we're on the right track and whether things work the way we think they work, and you know, this sort of thing. Okay, so this needs to be a shadow there. Gosh, maybe I should actually do an official podcast and all about this kind of stuff. Let me dovetail in a different direction. Let me build on what we talked about yesterday. Because I was thinking about, I was talking obviously about the fact that creative people are sort of tender souls, and sometimes we actually avoid getting the bad news by doing the hard work. Well, we avoid the hard work because doing the hard work might actually give us bad news, right? And it's completely understandable. But now, you know, think about the things that make you anxious in life. Like how quickly should I be trying to get this work done? For example, I know that when I hurry, I tend to get sloppy. So let's just say generally, everybody that comes to my channel is in various everybody that comes to my channel is in various levels of discontent with their own current capability and or accomplishment in the arena of animation, let's say. Everybody, and it's a gradient. Some people are extremely talented and capable and accomplished, but maybe they're frustrated with what they've been able to create as an independent creator. You know, maybe they haven't created much. Other people might have a lot of talent for that, but you know, they just don't draw as well as they want to, right? Everybody's got something, some limitation or deficit that, let's just say for simplicity, frustrates them a little bit. You know, they wish they were better or whatever. Let's go ahead and just put these in here. Put the keyframes in. So, depending on your situation in life, this can make you anxious. Actually, Amar, I think of your situation when you think about the Castlevania thing, you know. So you know, we have this one day where I sort of rant about how, dude, you can do this, you know, and not only you can do it, but you should. Okay. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that has a positive general emotional outcome for you. Let's just say. Meaning that you're inspired. You're like, you know what? It's a little bit of a kick in the pants, but by gum, I'm going to go do this. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Believe in myself, you know, feeling pretty good about it. And so let's think about quality. Is there any argument to be made for satisficing with less than the best quality you can deliver, let's say? Well, there are arguments to be made for satisficing. But in other words, with my show, for example, quality doesn't mean Disney style animation, because you want to, it's completely legitimate to target what you're doing to the marketplace that you're trying to serve, right? But within the realm of the type of animation I'm doing, of course, I want to come up to a certain standard. So why do I bring that up? Well, I do find it interesting that the things that keep us from being as good as we can be are usually not, they're not deficits in our skill or talent. It might be skill. It's usually not talent, though. Anybody that really works at it can get pretty good at almost anything, with very few exceptions. Now, if you're 4'2", you're probably not going to dunk a basketball. I get that. There is a point to what I'm saying here. My point is that if I could, what I would prefer for people, let me see here. I need to change this color. What I would prefer, oh, come on. I don't want to be in behind mode. G key, black. I'm gathering my thoughts here. It's not like you guys are in a big hurry, right? Well, to be honest, it probably is where a certain amount of coaching. This is actually what justifies the idea of creating like online courses or whatever, or a Patreon-based like coaching culture, because sometimes people need that. They need that objective voice that can. I'm not saying I want to do that or I'm going to do that. I'm saying that it can be helpful to have that, as I say, objective voice that sort of lets you know not only if you're off track, but how you can improve. In other words, I used the term clinical earlier. So much of our evaluations are not clinical. They're emotional. And the emotional stuff can really, really, really slow you down. Okay, so I need to take the shadow, ink, and color. I need to take these 3 layers and actually put them in a subgroup so that I can then do this liquefy operation. So I'm going to go liquefy and bridge of his nose. Okay, there we go. Stop. Okay, I want to go a little smaller. See, this is a good example of this problem here at the top. When you do it on the pencil test, you don't see it, right? So you don't think about it. Like I didn't. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to like repaint the top there. Like if you're hindered from being able to, you're sitting next to the guy who talks all day. Thanks a lot, dude. Well, I guess the point, Amar, is there's lots of things you can do, and it's all good. And of course, there's some things we do that turn out not to be necessarily the greatest choice for us, depending on the situation. So, and everybody can't be good at everything. I mean, I'm not actually that good at anything. I do seem to be getting better at some things, but, I've had to work hard. Everything I do, I've had to work hard to get good at stuff. And I don't even necessarily claim to be all that great at most of it. It is what it is. Look at all this garbage here with the I guess in the ink layer. I'm going to have to clean that up. But in other words, I prefer not to see people, if you're going to be hindered because you actually suck. Okay, because if you actually suck, then you can get specific about what's wrong and what needs to improve. If that's what stops you, then you can figure it out, you can quantify what the problems are, and you can work on fixing them. If what stops or hinders you is essentially emotional, then what do you do with that, you know? I'm looking for this little bit right here. I'm looking for it, and I'm not finding it. I guess part of it's right there in the color. Whoops. So, I mean, you know, if I have a mission here, that's probably part of it is, yep, it's right there, is helping people get past the, oops, that wasn't what I intended. You know, we want to get past the stupid barriers so that we can address the logistical barriers, the stuff we can actually do something about. So I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm obviously I'm talking to myself, because I'm a guy who's haunted by, you know, my whole life having different things that I just wanted to be good at. I'm like, man, I think I could do that. I mean, why not try? You know, and I never in any area ever got any formal training for anything. Somebody just asked me that. Like, somebody just asked me somewhere. It wasn't here on YouTube, I don't think. Maybe it was. Yeah, I think somebody asked me if I went to film school or something like that. I mean, literally nothing. You know, as a musician, as a screenwriter, as a cinematographer, as a visual storyteller, as a writer. Did I say writer twice? I don't know. I never got any training or instruction. I just, you know, tried to learn from what was out there and figure it out. Okay, so these guys, I guess we'll just leave them in the group. It doesn't really matter. So he says, see for yourself. Treachery. I like it. This is going to be a good shot. I seem to be bumping into a lot of these. I mean, I think this was a good shot too. When this was finally all said and done, I was kind of shocked at how well that final expression right there on Golik when he looks up at Vespar. I was really kind of shocked at how well that came up. But, there it is. Okay, so one thing we probably should do here is bake some sort of something into the paper. Okay, I'm just going to do it this way because this is literally on the screen for one frame. We're not going to be able to read it. And of course, it would be really fun to put something, you know, maybe some dirty words or something, you know, stick something in there that if somebody were to freeze frame it, maybe they could read it. Okay, and you know, that might be a clever little trick to pull, but basically, I'm not going to do that today. Okay, I'm just not going to do that. We're going to keep it simple, friends. Okay, now what we need to do is let's actually just put a second mouth layer. A second mouth layer. Mouth number 2. Boom. Okay, and then this is going to be a keyframe here, and probably here and here, I expect. So he's going to say, actually, you know what he should do? Let's make this semi-transparent. I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the color like that, and then sample the color, and then actually make it opaque again so that I can get some teeth in there. If you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, you'll know here in just half a second. So now what I'm going to do is grab And this might not work, but I'm going to try it. Yeah. Okay, so cool. So he's going to go treachery, right? And I may tighten up the line there in his teeth, but treachery. I want to keep it simple. Insert B. Now this I should darken up. I guess I can do it by just hitting the M key and doing like that. Just darken that baby down. Okay, we're getting close. Let's put the background back in. Hit for yourself. I tell you, I think I can just go with the sky. I don't think it matters. I mean, we could put, I guess what we could do, let's do this. Let's put the sky in here. Well, come on. Karita, don't grab the whole column. I'm doing that so I can save that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is grab just this one. And Karita did it again. Oh, it makes you want to scream. It always guesses wrong. If there's two possibilities, Karita will guess wrong every freaking time. It just, it's enough to make you a little edgy, friends. Okay, so now what I wanted to do, I think we'll just shift to here. Actually, maybe this would be appropriate. The problem is, okay, so let's just look at this a little bit. Okay, yes, this is obviously wrong. This would not be the soldier. This would actually be Vespar. What do you think about this? A little dyslexia moment, friends. Yeah, this would be, wouldn't, I mean, we could do this. That would make sense. That would make sense. Okay. So if we're going to do that, then we want to go boom. Okay, and of course Krita doesn't update the cache. As you can see, it's just skipping frames. Like that frame, it's there, but it's not going to show. Let me put it to you this way, friends. Programs like Blender, Clip Studio Paint, TV Paint, you know, stuff that costs like $1,000 bucks. Of course, Blender's free, but Clip Studio's a couple $100 probably. They're looking better and better to me. I mean, the better I get at the craft of animation, and the more I'm getting good work done faster, the more I just don't want to be impeded by tools that are just brain dead. You know, hate to be that way, but by golly, I'm not going to make any radical choices. There's a principle of least disruption in life that I'm a big believer in. But man, sometimes it, now, and to be fair, this is version 5. In fact, I think this is the beta. Yeah, this is actually the beta. So, but my experience with 5.0.2 was not positive. So I don't know. I'm leery of upgrading just to hope they get the stupid bugs worked out. And I am getting plenty of work done, so there's that to consider. Hey, Mar. You use CSP as well? Okay.
Well, CSP, okay. Yeah, CSP, if there's... No, my beard isn't getting whiter. You're wrong, dude. It's not getting whiter. It was always this white. It's just it was so thin and it was a goatee that you couldn't see it. It's been white for years. Now I'm 55 years old, man. Get the hell over it, pal. You know? And unfortunately, a certain amount of... okay, I'm actually going to make this a little more dense. We all get older, friends. We all get older. We just do. Yeah, that feels a little better. And now I'm going to do multi-frame, so all these frames that are selected. I don't know. I may check out. I mean, I've got Clip Studio Paint on my machine. Every time I look at it, I go, ugh. And in fact, what I actually wind up doing is saying, golly, you know, if you're going to go down that road, why don't you just go down the Blender road, right? So, anyway. Is this is 625. I better save my work and look at the render settings. Yep, this is not set to render yet, so. 625. Yeah, to get on board with CSP, I would have to I would very early on have to focus on getting the interface under control, really figuring out what the tools are, and then getting a workspace dialed in that I like, because I do like the workspace in Krita. But anyway, you know, there's always other ideas and options you can chase after if you're going to go down that road. All right, so this is 625, and we need to get the image sequence in there. Bottom line is we want to be able to, I just want to have a good time. You understand what I'm saying, people? I just want to do the work. I just want to work, you know? Now, if you're a rocket scientist, or if you work in a laboratory, or if you work on the manufacturing line, or if you're in any other kind of business, like service business, is there like stupid stuff that you have to deal with all the time? Absolutely. This is not unique to the animation software space. I mean, it's like everything I was saying about pharmacies, you know? It's just, this is, you know, it's really, the really high quality solutions that are just a pleasure to use, where your creativity is unimpeded by the tools, it happens. It does happen. It's vanishingly rare. But when it happens, you know, love it. Appreciate it. Okay, what do we have here? About 6 seconds of animation. Let's go ahead and turn on the preview. And let's go to best full so we can see and then I'm going to basically wrap up my session once we kind of review this. So Vespar comes up there and says, Tianara, come forth. Tianara. What's going on? What is it? It was my fault. You'll pay with your life. What? What? Golik, I'm sure he didn't mean to. Golik? There's the letter. Picks it up. What is it? There better be a good explanation for this, Biggie. What's going on? What's the delay? See for yourself. Treachery. Not bad. Not bad. I think the storytelling's pretty much happening. I do think as I said earlier, this is called body, which is stupid because it's not the body, it's the ink. You're silly goose. It's just that I think here I think it's baked in. It is. So, but I'm going to call that ink anyway. All right, so the ink layer needs a filter mask. Filter mask, which is going to be curves. And we are going to, oh, that's bad, that's bad. Stop everything, stop everything. Okay, we have a problem. We need to duplicate this layer and actually change the name back to body. Why? Well, here's why. We need to put this down here, down one more so it's not in the group. And then this body layer needs to have all of these keyframes deleted. And this ink layer needs to have all of these keyframes deleted. So that this has just the ink. Why? So that we can actually hit Control M. And we can tweak those lines that are just way too dark. Way too dark, my friends, way too dark. And we're not doing multi-frame, we're actually going to do a filter mask. So we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, look at that. That looks way better. Control R. Let's render the whole bloody thing and then see how she looks. Once upon a time, MS Paint was pretty much it. We've come such a long way. Yeah. Yeah. This, wow. Is this on the movie, The Truman Show? Talamore Joseph. No, there's no connection between what I'm doing here and the movie, The Truman Show. I just call it the Animation Truman Show because it is the unblemished, unglamorous process of watching what it takes to actually create a real show, which is pretty dry a lot of the time. You're just looking over the artist's shoulder to see what the heck he's doing. So anyway, let me double check how this render came out. So we got that. What's the delay, Gorlick? See for yourself. Treachery. I like it. And then it cuts to Melchizidek. So as far as I'm concerned, friends, I'm ready for a break. Well, I would say this. In the last week, man, I've done almost a minute and a half in the last week or so. A minute and a half of show from beginning to end. That's pretty good. Is it good enough? Let me think about that. No. Well, it's close. Actually, it is about right. 6 days at 20 seconds a day would give you 2 minutes. So I'm actually not quite to where I want to be. Sorry. But, okay, my first photo editing drawing was of Unix in the late 80s. I was going to say, you know, I didn't get to the end of your message, but I was going to say I'd be surprised if it hadn't been on an Amiga. So, probably was an Amiga. So, alright. I think that's it, guys. I am temporarily out of gas. It's been almost an hour and a half. We got a shot done. And 6 seconds is not horrible. But I expect I'll be getting back to it a little bit later, but I'm ready for a break. So, if there are any questions from the floor, feel free to ask them before I log off and tell you all to have a bloody good afternoon, such as it is until such time as I might deem fit to return. You good may not be great. Really nice characters. What's your process in Blender? What's my process in Blender? Well, I mean, I'm not using Blender.
I'm using Krita, but in Blender, it's not a lot different. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I'm going to typically do a pencil test and then lay in the ink and then lay in the color and then lay in a shadow layer, yada, yada, yada. So, you good may not be great for you, but great to someone else. It's all based on interpretation. The thing is getting done. The thing is, it is getting done. Which is always a great, well, that's very nice. Very nice, Amar. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. As you know, there will be more.